Hello, my name is Katya of House of Peach, and we are in Miami. And today we speak with Riley Kaminer from Refresh Miami. He's a contributor, and we're going to talk about the area, the startup scenes. But first, tell us what your beats are, what you're covering.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you for having me. I cover tech and mostly startups and innovators and a bit of investors. And in general, I'm not necessarily region focused, but I've been doing a ton of work for Refresh Miami over the last few years, and the local tech scene has grown a lot. So I've carved out a bit of a niche for myself in the local tech scene here in Miami.
It's expanding, it's growing, and there is an explosion of events in Miami this year. What happened? Like, is this strategic? Is this situational? Like, how Miami moved from crypto only and Web3 to compete with their neighbors on the East Coast and with even the notorious areas in West Coast, Silicon Valley and Los Angeles?
You know, the mayor says it really well. I think he talks about it. Is it a moment or is it a movement? And of course, he thinks it's a movement. What's happening here?
What do you think?
I think so too. I mean, I think maybe 2 years ago we saw really rapid growth. I mean, just super fast and this, hockey stick, as the investors like to say. Is that sustainable? Probably not. Will that continue forever? Probably not. I think the fundamentals, though, are still there. I think increasingly investors are seeing this as a place to be. Startup founders are seeing this as a place to be.
And several big VCs opened their offices here in Miami.
Andreessen Horowitz.
Yeah, Andreessen Horowitz.
Huge example. And Founders Fund, of course, was, I guess, either 2020 or 2021. That was really the first big VC to plant a flag here. And now Keith from there then went to start Open Store, of course, in Miami, and now he's back at Coastal Ventures. So now they have a bit of an office of some sort here. So yeah, I think it's definitely continuing. I think there are question marks. I think, for example, something that's brought up a lot in the interviews that I do is talent. Do we have like a kind of sufficient pipeline for talent?
So you just lure all those guys from other places with the weather and all the nice things and the dance parties and
Totally, yeah. I mean, definitely if you're trying to get that kind of young people who are interested in tech, the kind of person that would gravitate maybe towards Silicon Valley. I think there's been medium success with that. Interesting trend that I've seen here is a lot of companies that maybe have their C-suite here, and maybe they have a sales or marketing function here, but then all the kind of tech people are in other places, whether that's San Francisco because they have maybe more access to tech talent, or whether that's maybe Latin America where they have less expensive tech talent.
And we will probably see a lot of first-time founders. Not like in New York or in Silicon Valley when people are very experienced and exited several times before they decide to make another business, to do another startup. But here, people just looking at this Cambrian explosion of tech, of everything tech, will probably will feel encouraged to start their own companies. So how they get attention of the people who move the needle in the industry, because when you lack connections, you have great ideas and you can be really talented and equipped with all the character traits that needed to become a founder, a successful founder. But you don't know anyone. You don't know reporters, you don't know contributors, you don't know VCs. So is there an attention to that aspect, like helping those grassroots to go through and succeed?
Good question. I mean, I think first and foremost, building in public to some extent makes a lot of sense. I think even if you have some platform where IP is really important and you want to keep things a bit secret. I mean, even just talking about the process of being a founder in general terms, and not even just about the startup, kind of building your profile as a founder through that is important. Because from the journalist perspective, seeing what a founder writes online kind of de-risks the whole process for us, because then we see, okay, he has some interesting ideas. This person, knows what they're doing, or can add to whatever coverage I'm trying to do. So I think that's always a positive, just first and foremost. And then I think with journalist outreach, it's about talking to them before you need them. So saying, oh, I am an expert in this. If you ever need any insights into AI or whatever it may be, feel free to shoot me a message. Like a few lines. They may not respond, but I think that goes
Probably
a long way.
won't.
Probably won't. This is why you build a platform out of it for sure. But I think that is a really good start, and just trying to genuinely be helpful to them, because that for me, that's huge, and that's why I like working with thoughtful PR folks as well, because that can really help my coverage. And I wrote an article about Latin America and kind of the connection that Latin American founders have with Miami, and it was kind of a bigger article, and it was an area that I wasn't 100% familiar with, and I really wanted to cover it properly. And so the PR folks were really helpful with that, because over the last year, maybe I knew I wanted to write this article, so I've been collecting names and contacts, and that was really helpful. So I think being there before and thinking about that before you need it is really a good idea.
Nice. What makes a good story pitch for you?
Short and sweet, honestly. I think just keep it, it's funny, I was talking to a fellow journalist, and she was telling me she gets 2 pitches a minute from 9 to 5.
She can make a fortune on House of Pitch.
Just crazy, right? Totally nuts. Totally nuts.
We have to meet her.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and that's impossible. It's literally impossible. And now with the model also, not to get too much into the journalism sphere, but the model of freelancers, right?
Yeah.
So you have publications like TechCrunch, that's so many freelancers, and then they're getting bombarded, but they can't even write all these stories. So it's really quite a mess, I would say. But in terms of what makes a good pitch, I think short and sweet. I think talking about your traction or kind of what makes you different is important, because then it sort of validates it. Like, I have these many employees. You don't have to talk about revenue. I know that's a bit sensitive, but like, we've raised these funds, or our user base has grown this percentage, whatever it may be, just to show that there's something there.
That's actually a conundrum, because a lot of founders think that their idea or their technology is most important for coverage, but not the specific, like if they're raised or not. But media, they have their own angles and usually want some signs of establishment.
Right.
Like, we don't know if you will be here tomorrow with your amazing tech, so at least if you have investors. And it creates a bias. Like, what outside of obvious things that you need, like big round raised names in the cap table or in the advisory board, bigger clients, let's say what the first time founder or the early stage founder can do to stand out if they don't have all the boxes checked yet, but maybe. Can you think of something?
Definitely. I think first and foremost, go local or go niche. So go local. Refresh Miami, the last 3 years, I've probably written over 750 stories. I started counting at 500, which was maybe a year ago or something. So definitely go local, because those outlets want to cover, the startup that's in town doing things. Also go niche. So if you're, maybe AI is not the best example, but like marketplaces, that's a good example. Like, if you're a marketplace, there are tons of great news outlets that focus on marketplaces, and try to pitch them, because they could have quite a good footprint. I think start there and then see. I think also there's an interesting angle, like, for example, if you recently graduated from college, if you're like a younger founder, that's kind of cool, because it's impressive that you didn't just like try to work at Deloitte or something, but you like did your own thing.
Jumped right into this
totally
hellish, uncertain world of startups.
Right, or like maybe if you are from a different place and you moved somewhere because of this to start this thing, just try to find something that's a little interesting or a bit different, even if it's not like what the things you mentioned, the typical things, and just try to catch their eye. The other thing, just going back to what I was saying a minute ago, if you find a journalist that you can see is kind of interested in certain things, has like a certain beat that's worth covering, then pitching to that specific person and like writing towards that, say like, hey, I read your last article in the series of recent graduates that started tech startups. We're the same thing, would love to be considered for future coverage or whatever it may be.
So pay attention to the beats.
Yeah.
Find relevant people and something interesting, something spicy. Founders vs PR folks. I know you told already that you work with PR agencies and you like it. Not every contributor or journalist prefer to do that. Sometimes they say, I will only talk to CEO or the founder. Your take on that?
Unfortunately, as a journalist, I've had more negative experiences with PR people than positive experiences, probably. There are really a handful that I trust and like I talk to regularly and I think are genuine, and I try as much as I can to be beneficial to them and vice versa and build those relationships, but there's just so many that approach it in my opinion, the wrong way. I mean, it's really a numbers game. You probably know better than I do, but I think it's something like there are 5 PR people for every 1 journalist or something along those lines. I mean, it's just crazy. So it's really hard. I think talking to the CEO as a journalist is really helpful, and it's kind of, it like for your editor, they want to see that, and it's, you know, it's frustrating sometimes because I think, especially if like it's a bigger company, maybe the head of sales would be a good person, the head of marketing would be a good person actually to talk to, but for the purposes of the article, you know, you really want that spokesperson. So that's unfortunate, but like kind of a necessary thing.
Can you notice if the CEO was media trained or it's a raw conversation?
I can notice when they're not, for sure.
Okay.
And usually, honestly, usually that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, there's one really funny example of, it's a publicly traded company, and it's not that big, but it's publicly traded, and I got an interview with the CEO, and it was probably one of the best interviews I've ever had, because he gave me really a raw idea of what was happening. And his PR people weren't there. And
Maybe they were like dying at the moment.
Well, long story short, I never got another interview with that guy.
Okay.
So I got a few nuggets of gold and then nothing more after that. So but I think like from a startup founder's perspective, you don't need like tons of media training. I think you just should have clear in your mind what you want to say and what you don't. You know, just think through. I mean, even if you want like to ask ChatGPT for like, what are the 5 questions that this journalist is going to ask me, something, I mean, really, even that basic, obviously it's better if you're a professional, but even just kind of keep it basic and have that kind of idea in your mind, maybe a few notes, you know, definitely you don't need to read from them. Ideally, it'll just be a conversation, kind of like what we're having, like pretty natural, but you just want to think like, okay, I can't mention our revenue, you know, I can't, or
some numbers, yeah.
Right, or on the flip side, like, I really want to emphasize these 3 things.
Okay.
And I can tell sometimes it's a bit cheesy when they have that too much in their head, where they're like
selling to art.
Even I had an interview recently, and it was exactly that. I know and it's fine. Like I get they're really trying to, you know, put their best foot forward, and I respect that. But it's like, make it a bit more natural if you can, you know.
What is an instant no from you if you see the pitch or like something that founder does that blocks him forever from from your network?
I mean, I'll start with the PR people. The easiest no is when it's something totally unrelated to my beat. For example, I get invited, I don't know, 3 times a week, if not more, to write about a restaurant opening.
Mm-hmm.
I've never written about a restaurant in my entire life. I never will. I know nothing like, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't go. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just crazy. Like, why am I on this list? Same thing with real estate. I think real estate, especially in Miami, there's a lot of like PR dollars behind that. So I just get all these like, oh, there's a new building in Doral. It's like,
yeah, that's natural. That if it's out of your scope, out of your beats, you won't write about this. But if it's tech,
right? Okay.
But some crucial mistakes, some deadly misstep,
yeah,
that will kick the person out of your circle.
Definitely, another easy one is once I've had the interview, if it's a mess in some way, if like they're trying to retract stuff and like change, be really annoying and like hard to work with, I just won't do it. And in the future, I won't work with them again, because I just frankly don't get paid enough to deal with that. You know what I mean? I think it's like I don't want that, and you know, it's just not good for anyone involved, including my editor, including, you know, other people on my team. Like, it's a whole mess. So I have a bit of a blacklist in that sense. In terms of pitches, I mean, I really just like super long pitches. I just can't read it. I mean, I get so many pitches I just can't go through. I mean, it's another reason I love your platform. I just can't really understand what they're doing quickly. I think that's a huge difficulty. I think sometimes if a founder has a bit of a questionable background, that's often
doesn't
no.
make it like interesting and tricky if you try to dig something out and then like nobody knows but you found out.
I often talk to my colleagues
this,
about
like,
this.
Vague backgrounds, this
Totally.
opaque biographies.
Totally. I mean, I'm not really an investigative journalist, but I definitely, if anyone listening to this is an investigative journalist in Miami or in tech, I have a few ideas because they are out there. But I just don't really have scope to get into that.
Awesome. I know that you're a fan of Latin movies and food.
Yeah.
Recent movies you liked. I really like the Argentinian cinematography, and they have a lot of good directors. So anything you can recommend?
I mean, definitely like the entry level is Cuarón, I would say. Roma, which came out a few years ago now. I think that's a great film because it introduces people to the world of Latin American cinema in a very understandable way. I think that was quite an impactful movie for a lot of people. It talks about Mexico, like a neighborhood in Mexico City, and a family and different class struggles and history. So I love that kind of stuff. And I love documentaries, especially. I mean, it's kind of makes sense.
Can help you build relationships if you know a couple of things
about
a reporter, like what they like and what they do in their free time.
That would be great.
Awesome, thank you very much. And we have an exciting part where you have a pitch card in your House of Pitch feed, and we would like to see how in real time you usually react to this pitch card. It's very important for our founders.
Sounds great.
So they see and understand the mechanics of it.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you like me to do?
You just go to your review pitches and
talk you through it.
Yeah.
Clicks meet bricks. See, okay, the first thing I would say is what's great is how quick these are and how short they are. Like, it's so easy to read and understand. I think that's also cool. You can see the pitch deck and you have the Calendly here if you just want to go directly to meet up with a person. So you have the little deck here. And I think this is a great one because, I cover a lot of Miami and there's a tech aspect to it. I know art is a really important kind of area in our tech scene. So I will press connect and then it connects me.
Awesome.
And here we got another one, platform for cold outreach. There you go. I've heard about this one.
Yep.
Congrats on the 26 term sheets. I didn't know that. Well, I already know about this. But usually I would say no because it's in LA, but I know you guys are active in Miami as well. So I think there might be an opportunity there. So I'll press connect, and it's a good way to talk. This is an interesting one. Because it's a fundraise. So that's very useful for us. I mean, I think the issue with fundraisers on this platform is you really need to know in the moment, when it happens, to be able to cover it. And also, well, in this particular case, it's not based here, so I'm going to say no to this one. We built a conversational AI from scratch and released it 2 weeks before ChatGPT came out. That's exciting. And they're backed by Coastal Ventures. I want to know about these guys. Who are they? I'm going to open up their pitch deck in the background just to see. And I'm going to definitely connect with them because I love covering Palm Beach as well. And then that's it for now.